Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sayyid Sharik Waqar with his YouTube channel program, Role of Audit in Pandemic Times. Today we have available Mr. Saad Maniar, very distinguished guest from Crow and Mac, Chartered Accountant and Business Consultancy. Saad Maniar sir is the senior partner with this consultancy, which has a global network across the board. He also working as chairman of ACCA Member Advisory Committee in UAE and as educational instructor at Professional Learning Institution, FinPlan HB International Education. Let's start the conversation with him. Saad sir, how you look this external audit function in this pandemic time? Right now, everything is changing, and professionals are forced to work from home, and use of technology, digitalization, automation is very extensively in focus. So, what do you think? What really significant changes are coming in audit function? Please, over to you.
Yes, there has been no doubt significant changes in the way we do audit, and particularly more so it has been challenging working from home in the case where our clients were not prepared to do a digital delivery of the documentation, whatever we would want for performing our audit. So this has been very challenging overall. Even though we are prepared to do a digital delivery, we are using Caseware as a technology tool to perform our audits. But many of our clients who have struggled to provide the relevant information. Now, more so as time passes, it will become more challenging. Most of the clients we have here have the year end of December. So the COVID implication and its assessment was not so much of a concern as we can do away with just a disclosure in the financial statements because of its post balance sheet nature. But now that many companies who would have the year end of March and June have come into play, and their year end stock counting and all those things taking effect, which is very, very difficult to substantiate. So in overall, we have seen that the stock counting and certain citing of the documentation has also been very challenging.
You have so many critical areas. What do you think in planning, risk identification and assessment? What really troubles and what really challenges you are facing in this area of the audit? Can you brief us about this?
Yeah. So the planning is the most important aspect within the audit. If we don't plan, then we are planning to fail. So this is with this importance in mind, we have to have a team meeting and the risk assessment, the ISA 315 standards. Based on that, we perform the risk assessment. And the critical element of the risk assessment phase was given. We have to give due importance to the IT environment. Because of the business continuity and the nature of its reliance at this point in time. So for also for the professional judgment element needs to be taken care of. There are two aspects in the professional judgment which is required as a part of even at the planning stage, is we have to make an informed decision, and we have to apply the knowledge, skills, and competencies that we have acquired in the process of our experience. So it is absolutely important that we do the risk assessment, and this risk assessment should focus more on the significant risk. And in this COVID environment, the liquidity risk have been the major part of our focus for the audits.
Right. Now, right now, if we try to understanding the entity and its environment, because in COVID-19 is on daily basis there is strategy and environment and business strategy is totally changing. So how you would cope with it? This materiality point of view, this control point of view, how you cope with it in current circumstances? Because now the strategies are, as I observe there, the strategies are very much changing, daily changing. You have a 5-year plan, pre-COVID plan there, but now it's total alteration, total alteration. What do you think about it?
Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and this brings the big question mark on the continuity of the business and the impact on the going concern assumptions. So we have to show our professional skepticism in when we are developing the plan, and even when we are collecting the evidence and reviewing the documents. The thing about the COVID-19 situation is that we cannot completely rely on the information what was shared to us by the clients. For one simple reason that the client, whenever we ask a question, the client would have a buy-in of the time, and they can prepare any documents that we may ask them, or they can modify the documents because we have to just see them at the site. And we have to just cite them over the technology like the Zooms and the Teams and all that. So it is very important that we demonstrate our professional skepticism in order to discharge our obligation as an auditor, because the public at large is relying on the financial statements, especially the investors, the banks, who are relying on the audit of the financial statements to make their decision. So we have to be very critical about any of these kind of aspect in our planning.
Do you think the risk of fraud, the element of fraud, because you don't have enough time, there's a travel limitation in travel, and the verification of physical evidence as might be minimized in future, or current in situation that people are forced to work from home and working through, and all the meetings are happening through Zoom there. So do you think the risk of fraud is being more in such a type of situation?
Yes, certainly. The risk of fraud has always been very high, and we have the history has shown that the fraud happens every day. It is not the technology who does the fraud, but it is the people who do the fraud. So no matter what systems, what policies and procedures the companies would have, but if the people who are following those systems, policies and procedures, if they are not following those policies and procedures, then the risk of fraud is always high. And in times like this, the risk of manipulation increases, because we do not face-to-face interact with the client, and we are not able to read the body language. So one of the important element that we have learned in the audit is the observation skills. So what we hear and what we see at the client's premise is not, we are not able to experience that during this COVID time. So for this very important element of the audit process is difficult to follow, then the risk of fraud will certainly be very high. And the way we have to address this risk is to assess the integrity of the client and the professional behavior which the client demonstrate while providing the information to us. So for this is the major element of risk. If we cover that, then hopefully we'll be able to address the element of fraud and reduce or minimize the risk of fraud in this audit.
So one more important thing, which I believe you are also, this challenge you are facing in UAE also, because the business volumes are very reduced. and businesses are working almost on 50% capacity. So without compromising the quality of audit, client is offering you the less fees. So how you think that right now the challenges, and once in a year auditor is go for audit, so he might have to take a cut on fees or something else. What do you think? Without
Yes,
compromising the quality of the work, because
yes,
people are
of course,
thinking
the quality of the work. Yes, the quality of the work is directly related to the fees also. We understand that. And this has been very challenging. The other day, I was just having the discussion with some of the IAASB board members, and they were sharing the similar thoughts that the clients are challenging the auditors to reduce the fee in such a time. How can auditor maintain the same level of quality? In fact, based on my experience, what I can say is that the technology which we were not using it earlier, even though they were available, like the Zooms and MS Teams and Power BI and Tableau, have beautifully come into the play, and we are using these kind of technologies to our advantage by doing the advanced analytical procedures, and that has brought in a lot of efficiency in our work, and also for the staff were able to deliver the better quality of the services, and they have also kind of understood the importance of the quality which needs to be maintained. So overall, I think the technology has played a very pivotal role in maintaining the quality of the audit. There has been pressure on the fees, but with the little convincing explanation and the justification, the clients more or less have retained the fees. However, some clients who were really struggling, so we as an auditor also have to show a gesture and reduce the fee by 5 or 10%. And hopefully after the post-COVID situation, when things improve, we'll be able to go back to our earlier fees, and therefore a little cut at this stage is the kind of corporate social responsibility that we need to fulfill towards all our clients and the society at large.
Lovely. So regarding one of the very important tools, this is audit evidence. And in COVID-19 has resulted in many challenges for auditors to obtaining sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Travel restrictions are there, may have impacted physical access, attending inventory counts, and to obtain the physical vouchers there, because auditor want to see physically everything there. So how you cope this problem, these challenges? Because right now, what I see, there's clients are demanding that all the source document must be available in the system, and they have to provide there. But these certain type of tasks they are given to us, and they're asking us, all the source documents should be transferred to archive in the ERP system. How you cope this challenge?
So there are two things when it comes to audit evidence. Firstly, it has to be reliable, and secondly, it has to be relevant. So the reliability aspect is very important. Now, how do we ensure that the information with the client is sharing is reliable, because we are not able to see the original documentation? So in this case, the analytical procedures were extensively used, whereas the previous year comparative and the previous trend of the client were seen to confirm and validate certain informations. The technological tools like Power BI were used to throw out the exceptions in the financial statements, and thereby allowing us to focus on the exceptions, the exceptional items that we have seen in the books of the clients. So this is something that we have seen that it has been very beneficial, and this has also brought a lot of efficiency in our audits.
Sir, very important. Thank you very much. It's a very important question about inventory count, because mostly the factory locations are very far away areas. So how you handle this? The countries like Pakistan, the head office in Karachi and factory location somewhere in Hyderabad and Nooriabad about 200 kilometers away. So in such situation, when the traveling is restricted, so the physical verification of inventory, I think it's not possible on Zoom. Put some light on it. How to handle this?
Yes, of course, the physical count of the inventory has been the real challenge. But again, when we receive the physical inventory count, we compare it with the previous year and see what was it last year. So basically, the analysis we do, and then what we do is we track the location via the technology where it is that the warehouse belongs to the client, and then we kind of have to place the reliance on the technology whereby the client is counting, and we are observing that count over this Zoom or the MS Teams call. So this is what we have been doing. However, a very important element of the inventory count is also the validation of the ownership of those assets. So how do we know that the inventory what the client is counting belongs to them? Because they may move the inventory in and out, or from one room to the another room, the same inventory they can move and show it to us. So thereby accumulating the inventory count. So we have asked the clients to share us the live photos of the inventories, and we have placed the reliance on those inventory counts like that. The another very important thing and the procedure that we performed was to assess the integrity of the client. So we have developed a tool whereby we ask the client a series of questions, and then we kind of cross-validate that with the information that we have gathered from the client during the previous years, if they were the existing clients. So these procedures allowed us to ensure the consistency of the information that was shared by the client. But for the new clients who we were doing the audit for the first year, really it has been a real challenge.
Move to audit accounting estimates. Now the degree of estimation is really uncertain, and because of COVID, it is hugely increased. Nobody knows the next coming 1 year and 2 year what will be happening. Regarding these accounting estimates, so what planning you are doing need to be reorganized, re-estimates, on what grounds? Because nobody knows what going to be happen and what will be the economic impact in the next 2 years. So how you will foresee it?
Yeah, there are plenty of uncertainty around, and we cannot predict what's going to happen. But what we can do is once we have gathered the information from the client, we compare it with the industry trends of the similar clients. So thereby it gives us the benchmark in terms of if the client is in the, let's say, healthcare industry, and they are projecting degrowth of, let's say, 10%. So we compare it with the other healthcare clients that we have, and we see that, okay, what are they projecting? if they are projecting 20% or 30% degrowth, then we have to challenge the client on what basis they are only projecting 10% degrowth. And this is applying the professional skepticism at its best.
Another very important tool which you probably at the time of audit take into consideration is this going concern concept. So how will you ensure this? The same thing is there. The economic situation is pretty uncertain. So which date you're supposed to do at the date of at the end of balance sheet you try to realize the going concern concept, or you further estimate for such for 3 years more. How you consider this going concern?
Yeah, this is ISA 570 standards, which requires us to gather sufficient and appropriate audit evidence for us to conclude on the going concern aspect. Now, there are few things that we need to be mindful of. Of course, we are issuing our opinion on the balance sheet as at 31st of December or 31st of March, whatever their year end is. But we are signing the financials post the balance sheet date. So we have to also ensure that the post balance sheet, let's say the COVID implications, we have to consider and see whether the client is able to sustain the impact of the COVID, and he will be able to continue in the business for the foreseeable future. And we have to challenge the management assumptions on this. And of course, the earlier question you asked about the assumptions and estimations also needs to be challenged. So overall, the assessment of the going concern is to be done as at the time when we are signing the report, audit report. Also, hand in hand, the another standards that is ISA 550, that is the subsequent event standards. Also, we need to stress on that, and importantly, cover that standard before we sign our opinion.
Right. Now come to the auditor reporting. Now we have because of uncertainty, and it's a very common phrase and very famous phrase, auditors report always there, true and fair view. Now all the supports evidences, how much you taken reliance on it, and how will you issue the report, because in the next 1 or 2 months all the estimates, all the judgments went wrong, something has happened very disastrous, then what will be the opinion of auditors? How they safeguard that? It could be a big threat on them.
So based on our assessment of the risk, we kind of plan that what are the necessary disclosures we need to have in the financial statements. So, for example, if in the books of the client there are receivables of 10 million standing in the books, and the industry and the client of the customers of our client, we know that they are struggling industry. So we run a kind of a background check on few of the key customers of our clients and see what is their standing, how are they doing in terms of the business, is the provision made by the client is adequate in the financial statements, and then appropriately, if it is necessary and relevant, then we ask client to increase the provision in the books. Of course, when things improves and the client is able to recover money, that provision can be reversed, which can be a positive impact on the current on the next year. But at the moment, we have evaluated the situation very critically, and we have asked clients to make the appropriate provisions and necessary disclosures. So, we have been advising clients to make the disclosures relating to the COVID implications. Also, we have asked client to do the COVID impact assessment to see what is the impact going to be on the liquidity, on the cash flow management, and the overall business operations. And accordingly, we are able to draw our conclusion and express our opinion on the truth and fairness of the financial statements. However, the going concern assumption remains questionable because of too much of uncertainty due to the COVID.
Now come to the last very serious point also there, this subsequent events. In accordance with the ISA 560, subsequent events auditors are required to perform procedure designed to obtain sufficient, appropriate, and audit evidence that all events requiring adjustment or disclosure in the financial statement. So, in such current situation where the economic uncertainty there, so how you manage this subsequent evidence?
Yeah, so with regards to the subsequent event, this particular standards, it is the post-balance sheet event standards. So we have to see that the event happened during the before the balance sheet date or after the balance sheet date. Now, in most countries across the globe, the COVID implications started from February or early March, and so if the client's year end was December, then this post balance sheet event, which do not require the adjustments in the financial statements because of the uncertainty, the implications cannot be ascertained. So just with the additional COVID related disclosures, the clients were able to do away with that. But with the clients who had the year end of March or June, for them this COVID impact fall before the balance sheet date, and so it becomes kind of an adjusting event. So a detailed assessment were required to be done, including the implications on the financial statements, and the necessary adequate provisions were required to be made. So there are two situations for the clients where it falls within the balance sheet date, the adjusting event. Then it triggers the disclosure and the provisioning also. And whereas for those where it was post balance sheet, just the disclosure would be sufficient.
It means that the auditors will have to much more closely liaison with the management to report the subsequent, to ensure the subsequent events accurately identify them. But I understand.
Yes. Of course, the beauty of the technology is that we were able to increase our interaction with the senior management or those in charge with governance for a reason that to connect with them over the technology, it's very easy. Otherwise, previously, if we were to meet them in person, it would take maybe half an hour drive to go to a meeting and come back, and if the client has to come to our office, then likewise, so it was time consuming. So as a part of our obligation under ISA 260 and 265, which is communication with those in charge with governance, was very much strengthened during this COVID time, because the quick interaction over the Zoom and the Teams helped us a lot in terms of efficiently communicating the significant matters and concluding on them. So really it has the communication with those in charge with governance was significantly improved.
So what do you think that right now this current situation, the more and more, because right now at present you are working in a much more advanced and much more better environment, technological better environment, Europe and GCC as compared to Eastern other Asian countries. So what do you think in such an environment, the quality of work is much more improved in post-COVID era regarding finance field, audit, accounts, finance. The quality of work in this is an advantage to the professional who are strongly cope with the technology. Do you think they have better chances, much more better chances as a professional in post-COVID era?
Yes, the focus has been there from the staff also, because of the COVID situation. The market opportunities have dried up, so the staff were able to focus on the job more than before, and they were able to deliver the better quality of the output and more efficiently. In my experience, I've seen that earlier, when they were working from the office, lot of time were consumed in the social catch ups, and the traveling to and from the clients and so on. So effectively, what used to be the 60% utilization of their day's time increased to almost 90-95% utilization of their time. So the efficiency increased. But then again, the quality of the deliverable, it's all about the documentation. So there are three kind of principles or the rule, or whatever you may want to call it, for the quality of the audit. Number one is documentation, number two is documentation, and number three is documentation. So it is said that if we do not document, then it's not done. So for the documentation is very important, and the technology allowed us to improve the documentation to a great extent. However, like we discussed earlier, the reliability of the information that we have gathered, we have to be skeptical on them, and provided we have the questioning mind, and we perform the critical analysis of the information that we have gathered, we were able to satisfactorily improve the quality of our deliverables.
So, right now, what do you think what advice you can give? Because I know you are giving lectures on so many international forums, also an advisory board of ACCA members. So, what do you think the newcomers have to adopt new skill? What new skills they have to adopt to cope the challenges of COVID-19 in the field of audit and accounts and finance?
Yes, first and foremost, they have to, practice ethically. So they should not compromise on the ethical values. That is the integrity, objectivity, professional competency, and due care, confidentiality, and the professional behaviors. So these 5 core principles of ethics, they should enhance their knowledge and the practice of these ethical skills. Number 2, it's the digital awareness, how the digital is going to impact on the audit or on the overall business operations, has to be very critically evaluated. And for that reason, the knowledge knowledge needs to be enhanced. So for myself also, even during this COVID time, I took the opportunity to do a certificate course on digital innovation in finance, and I can vouch for it. Certainly, it has increased my knowledge and skills. The digital is the future, and the kind of blockchain technology which we are seeing that it is evolving. is going to be the future. And understanding the technology and the blockchain technology is absolutely important. And this is how the audits will be done in the future. The manual paperwork and all that will go away. So the auditors need to improve their digital skills, certainly.
One very important thing you emphasize about documentation. Now, do you think in this digitalized, rather to say virtual economy, the time has come out for paperless environment, a paperless transaction? Because 25 or 30 years back, we study about this paperless transaction, but not 100%, yet not 100% implemented across the globe, I guess. So do you think this time has come out?
Yes, certainly. I mean, we have been doing the audits in the paperless environment for the past few years now, as we adopted the Caseware technology to perform the audit. So all our work papers are digitally documented. So we do not have any papers for working papers for our audits in the physical form. So likewise, depending on the industry, it will take time to get into the digital environment, but certain industries are more advanced and more adaptive to the technologies, whereas certain still will take time. So it will be a combination of the digital and the paper environment for depending on the industries that we see. But for the audit profession, certainly many of the top 10 or top 20 firms or the networks have adopted this digital technology, and this has significantly enhanced the overall quality and the efficiency in the audit.
So one more, I think right now in this present time, the world is connecting very quickly to each other through different sources. I'm meeting on the Zoom meetings through there. So regarding the cross-border business, everybody now is focused on to cut down their costs, because cost consciousness are very there, business are reduced. So the cost consciousness is now become a very important factor. So what do you think the cross-border business regarding audit and accounts and finance field, like that from India or Pakistan business, online business, they have to perform duties, perform the accounts and finance function, audit function. Do you think it will improve in post-COVID era?
Yes, this will increase. So for some of the audit work in the more advanced countries where the cost of employing the talent is very high, will shift to the countries where the cost of for acquiring the talent is very less. So for example, if we are sitting in Dubai and if we have to do the audit, currently we have to employ the people at a higher salary. So for maybe the audit firms will think about saving some costs so that they can offer the value for money to their clients, and also improve their performance as a firm. So yes, certainly this trend is likely to increase going forward. Some of the bigger firms, especially the big fours, have been practicing that model for some times. But hopefully now for the mid-sized firm and the smaller firms will follow the trend.
And you are a ACC also, definitely study about costing. What do you think cost accountant can play more vital role in this post-COVID era? Because the cost consciousness is now everywhere. So the role of cost accountant.
Yes, the cost will automatically reduce also. So if I can give my own example, for in this 4 or 5 months, we have been more or less working from home, right? So that means that in this 4 or 5 months, normally I would have traveled to a couple of countries for attending our global meetings and the board meetings and things like that. So we were able to do these meetings remotely. So number one, that the traveling cost was saved. The traveling time was saved, which we were effectively able to utilize in the billable hours here, working from home. So like that, the cost have been reduced also. So even for the trainings that we normally do, so we used to rent a room in the hotels and do the training physically face to face. But now in the past 3 or 4 months, we have been doing the training using the technology. So for the overall cost, whatever little bit, but it has reduced. And your earlier question was very apt that for the back office functions will move to the lower cost jurisdiction. So and also for the use of technology plays a very pivotal role. So for example, currently we use certain robotic process automation to prepare the bank confirmation letter. So once we have feed in the bank account details and the client details on the system, automatically when the year ends, at the click of a button, we can produce for thousands of bank confirmation letters, and which are automatically sent to the bank to confirm it to for us. So and including the authorization from the client. So this kind of thing saves a lot of time. Plus, not only the bank confirmations are sent automatically to the banks, but they are also being placed directly in the client's file. So thereby improving the quality and the quality of the documentation.
This is the other than the theoretical question of audit point of view. In the twilight of my 25 years career, which I saw there, the operation is the business operation uh, are not properly translated into the number, especially cost audit point of view. Because financial audit is basically for the compliance point of view. From the cost audit point of view, sometimes I see there is a lot of problem is there. Uh, the unit of selling units are different and production units are different. And like a glass industry, I saw there the selling unit in per piece and production units in kg or tons. So there are very significant problems that arise. Do you think how we cope such type of problems and the importance of cost audit if the cost accountant uh, uh, they will provide some more function with the uh, strategic audit, financial audit. Do you think they can improvise the quality of statutory audit if the cost accountant are involved in it? I think you got my point because sometimes I see there's a lot of gap. It's come out between the financial and profitability and costing point of view. The profitability come out from the costing point of view. What do you think?
Yeah, so the improved and the better quality of the cost accounting within the industry will help them improve the profitability within that particular business, and that means that those businesses who have the better cost accountant, who are able to absorb the overall cost of within the production of whatever material they are producing, then that will contribute towards the sustainable future of that particular business and the industry.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Now time is running out, and hopefully our listeners and our viewers will enjoy this conversation, a very detailed and very knowledgeable conversation there. Please watch this program, like and comment, and give your suggestions to us, and especially subscribe my channel also. And inshallah, very soon we have another detailed program with Saad, because so many things are still because of shortage of time undiscussable with Saad, and Saad is just arrived from the office. I'm very much thankful to him. At that point of time, he gave me the time to speak out. Thank you very much, Saad, inshallah, and thanks for your time. Inshallah, we will
Thank you very much.
time also. Thank you very much.